any institution considering restoration of their stained glass, the cost involved in such a project can seem a bit overwhelming at first. That is, until you consider the many reasons why such an investment is so important to your heritage as a sacred assembly, to your building's future as a place of worship, and to your community at large as a valuable source of comfort, education, refuge, and assembly. In this video, we'll be sharing ideas and resources that can help you kickstart your capital campaign and assist you as a community of worshipers to formulate a practical and achievable approach to making the restoration of your stained glass a reality. We'll also examine some reasons why you may wish to consider working with a professional fundraising consultant. Whether you're a member of a church, a parish, a synagogue, or a temple, each of you has been entrusted with preserving the heritage of your sacred space for future generations. Think about the fond memories you have growing up in your faith. Don't your children and grandchildren deserve the same legacy? That's why preserving and restoring your stained glass is much more than just a practical matter. Being a good steward isn't just a suggestion. The Bible states that we are to guard and preserve the material possessions with which we've been blessed, both individually and as members of our spiritual family. A restoration project of this type means that you become part of the living history of your sacred facility, while restoring the full beauty and atmosphere the original artists intended for your sanctuary. In reality, you are creating the time capsule for generations to come that speaks of your caring, your love, and your commitment to your faith, to your family of believers, and to the heritage of your organization. Plus, you are literally increasing the value of your building by restoring both the intrinsic and the artistic value of its stained glass. And for some, the restoration process provides an ideal opportunity to memorialize loved ones in a lasting, beautiful, and creative way through a memorial window. You might be surprised to discover the full value and impact your church, synagogue, or temple has on the community. Our places of worship are far more than just a place to gather on the Sabbath. To keep things simple, we'll refer to your place of worship as a church in the following examples. The church serves as a beacon of hope to all those in need. A building where education is offered and where we gather for special occasions. Your church offers ministry and teaching to the community at large with after-school programs, daycare, soup kitchens, food pantries, computer training, job readiness, music, drama, and much more. In a recent study by Partners for Sacred Places, it was found that the average church provides 5,300 hours of volunteer support each year and houses at least 4 community service programs. Our children and our youth benefit from these service programs more than any other group. In your fundraising effort, it's important to understand that these programs and services have a measurable impact on your community. Partners for Sacred Places has shown that a church's average subsidy to a community is about $140,000 a year. There is no question that your church, synagogue, or temple is a valuable community resource. There are profound reasons, physically, spiritually, socially, and historically, to undertake a stained glass restoration project. But the natural question to ask is, how can we afford something like this? Perhaps a better question to ask might be, how can we not afford to undertake the restoration of our stained glass? Let's examine some options and answers that may help shed some light on the entire process. Good news! You can find funding for your stained glass restoration project in virtually any economic climate. Every year, Americans contribute more than $290 billion to the causes we care about. In fact, for the last 50 years, giving has increased steadily with only occasional brief downturns during recessionary periods. Religious organizations receive the largest share of charitable gifts by far, more than twice as much as education, 3 times as much as foundations, and 4 times as much as human services and health organizations. Literally, a wealth of money exists to support religious and other nonprofit organizations. But you have to work to receive it as you compete with thousands of other worthy causes. The organization that best captures the hearts and imaginations of potential donors can expect to share in the wealth. The question is, how can you become that organization and raise the money you need to restore your stained glass to its original glory? To get your piece of the pie, you first need to know who has the money to give you. About 3/4 of all gifts come from individuals. Like most worthwhile endeavors, successful fundraising recognizes people as its most valuable resource. Foundation grants provide another 14% of the money raised each year. Bequests and lifetime gifts, those made through an individual's will and realized after they pass away, make up another slice of the pie at 8%. And you can look for about 5% from corporations. A good fundraising plan focuses on individuals who can make major outright gifts. Depending on the size of your campaign and your donor base, you might consider $1,000 as a major gift, or you might consider $10,000 as a major gift. Grants from foundations, corporations, or the government supplement these individual gifts, but rarely carry a campaign. A professional fundraising consultant can help you determine the appropriate mix of donor types based on your campaign and help you identify those major gift donors from among your constituents. In short, they can help you get your ducks in a row. When you're planning a fundraising campaign, lining up those proverbial ducks becomes a critical first step to success. For example, does your organization have a 501c3 status from the IRS? If not, don't panic. You can still raise money, but your donor options will change and your grant pool will become more limited. If you have a skilled grant writer in your assembly, that's a big plus, but many institutions aren't so fortunate. There are options, however, which we'll discuss in a moment. How about your Board of Trustees or Leadership Council? Do they support the project, both administratively and financially? Getting everyone of one mind and one accord is an important dynamic to the success of your stained glass restoration program. And talking about support, do you have enough volunteers willing to undertake the necessary tasks for a successful campaign? Will they ask for money? Identify potential prospects? Handle telephone and internet communications? Do follow-ups and thank yous to donors? There are many facets to a successful fundraising campaign, and volunteers are an essential ingredient for a smoothly operating program. Does your institution have a history and a culture of fundraising? How much have you raised in the past, and from whom? Answers to these questions will keep you from reinventing the wheel while helping to focus your efforts in the most productive areas. Beyond fundraising itself, ask yourself if your leadership has the organizational capacity to implement this project and then sustain it once completed. Let's put it another way. Successful fundraising is a marathon, not a sprint. You need to have the organizational commitment to create and maintain the energy, enthusiasm, and work throughout your campaign, which can last 6 to 18 months or longer, depending upon the amount you raise and your fundraising history. Affirmative answers to these questions will get your fundraising campaign on track in short order. Again, if you find yourself answering no to a number of these questions, a fundraising consultant may be the answer for your organization. More on that in a bit. A fundraising campaign progresses through 5 steps: identification, informing, engaging, soliciting, and stewarding. Let's take a brief look at each of these steps and the things you need to consider. Identifying your potential donors becomes your first step once you've determined that your organization has the capacity to successfully launch and sustain a campaign. You can expect 1 out of every 4 prospects you identify to contribute to your campaign. So you need to identify many more potential donors than you need. How many donors you need depends upon the size of the campaign and the amount each donor contributes. The next steps of educating and involving your membership often go hand in hand. The case statement serves as the foundation for these steps. The case identifies all of the compelling reasons why an individual or organization should support your project. Earlier, we discussed reasons for restoring your stained glass, such as passing on the heritage of their original beauty to future generations, increasing the value of the building and grounds, conforming to scriptural injunctions regarding stewardship, and even memorializing loved ones. From this case come all of the communication materials and talking points for your education and involvement programs. Without a compelling reason to consider your project, a prospective donor will go elsewhere. When speaking with donors, you'll want to focus on the reasons they should support your project. You'll want to communicate on the why of a project with less emphasis on the what. Focus on the heritage, history, stewardship, and value of your stained glass restoration, rather than the less compelling statement that we're fixing our stained glass windows. The restoration project becomes the mechanism through which you accomplish your other goals of preserving your heritage and celebrating your history. It bears repeating that marketing materials you develop for your campaign should likewise focus on outcomes, such as preserving the heritage and history of your stained glass, increasing the value of the building and property through good stewardship, and better providing for your community's spiritual and basic human needs. Rather than saying, hey, we're restoring our stained glass windows, you want to give us some money? You'll want your materials to say something like, join us in celebrating the history and heritage of St. John's as we honor the past by preparing for the future. Involvement means just what it sounds like: getting everyone involved in the project. Ask volunteers to write your case statement. Host or attend informational events. In fact, anything that helps to give them ownership of the project. It's just human nature for people to support projects they feel connected to. In step 4, you actually ask for money. There are a number of ways to ask a person for money. Let's take a quick look at the basics. Major donors determine the success of any campaign. As a rule of thumb, 95% of the gifts will come from about 5% of your donors. So major donors really matter. How do you find major donors? Background research and their participation in previous fundraising activities are good places to start. By far, the best way to solicit support from a major donor is to ask them face to face. If you've done fundraising before, you'll have an idea who the people are who can be counted on to make large donations. The personal touch, your relationship, and your friendship with potential donors carries a lot of weight and will be the most important factor in moving your campaign forward. Grant writing offers another fundraising option. The overall impact of requests to corporations, foundations, and government entities depends upon factors like your location, the nature of your project, and its value to the broader community. The process of grant development requires targeted research, experience with technical and persuasive writing, and a thorough familiarity with the ins and outs of grant writing. If you are fortunate enough to have an experienced grant writer in your membership, that opens the door to a multitude of funding options. Special events like bake sales, auctions, galas, and the like have value in raising awareness and educating your constituents about your fundraising project. But after considering time and costs, they rarely raise significant revenue. While that doesn't preclude using special events as part of your fundraising effort, first, consider the overall cost and your purpose and use them sparingly. You can't sell cookies as your sole source of support for your restoration project. Asking for donations through the phone, mail, and emails provides a useful avenue for broadening your base of support and invites everyone within the body of membership to become part of assuring your project's success. While certainly a factor in your overall campaign, these types of appeals rarely raise more than 5 to 10% of your total goal, so plan them accordingly. Finally, bequests and planned gifts can provide very large gifts from a person's estate. The trade-off comes in the timing of these gifts, as they often provide very little income in the short term. A balanced and effective fundraising campaign focuses on all types of fundraising, with the bulk of your time spent in face-to-face solicitations of major donors. Before you begin asking for money, you need to plan how you will handle those checks as they come in. You need to have a plan in place to handle donations as they arrive. Bear in mind, too, that you need to thank donors for their contributions early and often. As a good rule of thumb, thank each donor at least 7 times, at different times, and in different creative ways, to let your donors know how much you appreciate them. Successful fundraising requires that the right person ask the right person at the right time for the right project in the right amount. A good fundraising plan will help assure that you have these elements in place, along with the necessary research to implement and support your decisions. While this video isn't about hiring a professional fundraiser, for some institutions, the option of establishing a relationship with an experienced professional can be a viable part of your stained glass restoration project. That's why it's important to know how to find a good one. A professional fundraiser can help you construct and implement a balanced and effective campaign that includes all the available funding options that will work with your campaign and your constituent base. But just because someone calls themselves a professional fundraiser doesn't necessarily mean they have the qualifications to undertake a campaign as important as yours. Here are a few items you can expect a professional fundraiser to routinely provide. First and foremost, a professional fundraiser will conduct a detailed campaign readiness assessment. This provides the foundation of your fundraising efforts. And just like the foundation of a house, it needs to be solid, square, and level. Remember we talked about having all your ducks in a row? A professional fundraiser will take into consideration every element that comprises your campaign and determine which areas need strengthening and which elements need to be added, improved upon, or eliminated altogether. You can expect a balanced and comprehensive approach for an effective campaign that meets your specific needs and constraints. In other words, a good professional fundraiser will create a campaign plan for you, not try to wedge your organization into a generic one-size-fits-all plan. We also talked about the importance of defining compelling reasons why someone should donate to your campaign. A professional fundraiser will work with you to develop a case for support that focuses on the why and not the what, part of an important dynamic for capturing your donors' hearts and minds. Another critical element provided by a professional fundraiser is helping to identify potential major donors among your constituents, as well as the appropriate mix of donor types based upon your campaign. This requires in-depth research that allows you to focus your time and energy on those individuals who can make the greatest impact on your campaign. Because many people feel uncomfortable asking friends and neighbors to donate money to a project, a professional fundraiser can step in and handle this somewhat daunting task. Or provide training to your volunteers to help make them more comfortable with the process. You can also expect a professional fundraiser to conduct staff and board training sessions on campaign planning, solicitation, and board leadership, if you need it. They may also provide administrative assistance to track donor requests and their response. If you don't already have marketing or advertising specialists in your spiritual family, a professional fundraiser experienced in creating compelling and effective marketing materials can save you significant time and money. They will help create targeted solicitation materials in the form of brochures, letters, and other print copy that assures you have all the resources necessary for this important facet of your campaign. Thanking your donors and letting them know you appreciate them is another area where a professional fundraiser can help. You can count on them to develop and implement a stewardship plan that thanks donors for their contributions and shows them how they made a real difference. And last, but certainly not least, a professional fundraiser can cut through all the red tape associated with the grant process by writing grant applications tailored to the specific needs of a foundation, a corporation, or a government source. Their background and experience with targeting exactly the right entities to approach for grants can save your organization a great deal of time and effort. Additionally, being able to optimize your situation, regardless of your nonprofit status, is an important part of the grant process and something with which a good professional fundraiser will be thoroughly familiar. More than 1 million organizations like yours raise significant funds every day. Potential donors are sitting among your constituents right now, waiting for you to ask them to make a difference. You need to identify them and then ask for a gift in a way that resonates with their needs and desires. Quite honestly, fundraising is a time-consuming process. That's why a professional fundraiser can be a tremendous asset in your campaign, helping you manage the backroom functions needed for this process to succeed, while enabling you to focus on what you do best, running your church, synagogue, or temple, while you develop and manage the relationships that will allow you to grow and thrive in the future. In the end, it's all about making your ideas happen. So, wrapping things up, profound reasons exist for undertaking a campaign to fund the restoration of your stained glass. From the historical perspective, you will ensure that future generations experience the benefits of the historic heritage your stained glass represents for your place of worship. Physically, you ensure the structural integrity of the stained glass for generations to come, while significantly adding to both the intrinsic and artistic value of the building itself. Socially, you continue to provide a beautiful and historic location for the social needs and basic human needs of your community through your outreach programs like soup kitchens, tutoring, and social gatherings. And spiritually, you meet the Bible's mandate for being good stewards of the blessings you've received. A wealth of money exists to support nonprofit organizations. A body of believers with the right skill sets among its members can anticipate mounting a successful campaign for the restoration of their stained glass windows. But even in smaller groups, collaborating with a professional fundraiser can more than make up for the lack of specific talents and skills in your membership. Either way, by following tried and true methods as outlined in this video, you can reasonably expect to achieve the goals of your capital campaign. It's important to understand that successful fundraising is a marathon, not a sprint. Proper planning in laying the foundation for your fundraising effort will help you cross the finish line and arrive at your goal. maybe a little tired, but stronger than when you began. Identifying and communicating compelling reasons why an individual or organization should support your organization and your project will energize and motivate your efforts to be successful. And keeping your fundraising options in balance will help assure a successful outcome for your campaign. Successful fundraising requires that the right person ask the right person at the right time for the right project in the right amount. A good fundraising plan will help assure you have these elements in place, along with research to support these decisions. And finally, your collaboration with a professional fundraiser can help free up your time to focus on the day-to-day functions needed for the fundraising process to succeed. There's an old saying, if you can conceive it, you can believe it. And if you can believe it, you can be living it. It takes work and commitment, but working together, we can make your ideas happen.